Let's bring in Democratic strategist and pollster Margie Omero and Jonathan Collegio, communications director for American Crossroads. It's good to see both of you. But Jonathan, let me start with you. Is there a Republican divide here? Who's right on this issue?
You know, I think that they're both right, depending on the perspective that you're coming to this question from. I mean, from Jeb Bush's perspective, he's absolutely dead on in kind of the historic global perspective. This has been a very partisan president who has very rarely thrown the ball to his Republican counterparts. And if you look even at Jeb Bush's brother, President George W. Bush, like him or hate him, one of the first things that he did as president was to throw the ball to Senator Ted Kennedy on the education bill. And we've seen none of that from the president. So I think that Jeb Bush is right globally. In this specific case, though, Coburn is right, and the Republicans who have been meeting with him are right, because the president has done this outreach. But here's the big question. I mean, this is the first week that he has ever done this, according to the Washington Post, you know, and having that dinner. That's 1 week out of the last 200. So I think that they're both right. Yes, it's happened, but it hasn't happened much.
Margie, are they both right?
Well, I mean, if Jeb Bush normally is a thought leader among Republicans, I'm not sure this comment was really smart, because it allows us to relitigate which candidate ran a divisive campaign and which candidate ran a unifying campaign. And voters have made their decision. They decided that Obama ran a more unifying campaign. And you could see that in Jeb Bush's own comments, where he said, well, when pressed further, said, well, he has this us versus them, and, you know, it's the wealthy versus everyone else. So he's criticizing Obama for being, in Jeb Bush's words, of the 98%, when you had, by comparison, Mitt Romney, who was discounting about half of the electorate, both in private comments and his comments after the election, even a week or so ago when he did his Fox News interview. And I think the other thing that I think is important to note is where the American people say what they say right now. And right now, according to the last NBC poll, half of Americans say that Obama is unifying the country. 2/3 of Americans say that Republicans are much more divisive and have a much more partisan viewpoint.
Let's talk a little more about Jeb Bush, because he certainly has been making the rounds. He was on all the Sunday talk shows, and he was asked about 2016 on Meet the Press. Here's what he said.
Who's the hottest Florida politician right now? Is it you or Marco Rubio? Who are we more likely to see in the White House?
Man, you guys are crack addicts. You really are obsessed with all this politics.
You know, I've been called a lot of things.
Marco Rubio's a great guy. Okay, heroin addict. Is that better?
Having said that, Jonathan, I mean, Jeb Bush, his criticism of the president, is it a lot motivated by sort of maybe testing out lines or getting himself warmed up for 2016?
Well, look, he was one of the most successful governors of the last decade in his work that he did in Florida, reforming the education system. They have a very, very low tax rate there. He has an incredible record were he to run for president. And, of course, he's going to get those questions. But he's a major figure in the party, and so is Senator Rubio. Here from Florida, we have two of the most charismatic and dynamic Republican politicians of the last generation. So, you know, I think it's good for him to be out there, to be voicing his concerns about what's going wrong with the country and how to move forward. I think that he's doing a good job with that.
Yeah, there's another question, Margie, about what went wrong with the last election, and the Republican National Committee's report on 2012 is going to be out next Monday. You know, and I guess when you look at somebody like Jeb Bush, is he the more moderate voice that the Democrats would worry about?
I think right now there's a leadership vacuum on the Republican side, and I think Jeb Bush, at least for now, can fill that vacuum. And certainly, I think any Democrat who's going to run for president should be worried about any of the leading Republican potential contenders, anybody out there. We're going to have there'll be a tough race, and just like we'll continue to have tough races, I think, for a long time. So I think Jeb Bush, from time to time, he sounds very moderate. Sometimes, though, when he has to defend Mitt Romney, or when he isn't quite clear on his view on immigration, sometimes it reveals the difficulty that the Republican Party has right now in figuring out where it wants to go next.
Margie Omero, Jonathan Collegio, thanks to both of you.
Thank you.